This is the 15-inch MacBook Air. So the big question is, has Apple managed to redefine the world's most popular laptop size? Let's find out. And yes, I'm in New York. So if there's one Mac release that's really surprised me this year, it's the 15-inch MacBook Air. These rumours about this new MacBook came around fairly late, actually, leading up to WWDC, and I was one of those people who thought, really? A bigger MacBook Air? Isn't that what the MacBook Pro's for, the 16-inch version? Who wants a 15-inch MacBook Air? As it turns out, if you do some research, 15-inch is the biggest or the most popular sized laptop. And Apple tells us that with the 15-inch MacBook Air, they've got rid of all the compromises that normally come with a 15-inch laptop. So poor battery life, heaviness, great big chunky Windows laptops we've seen at that size. I know that they're not all that size, but you know, Apple, they have to embellish that a little bit. I did what I always do. I bought the base spec 15-inch MacBook Air, and I've been using it solidly for a week, but I've brought it over here as well on my travels, and I want to see if they have come good on their promise. And wow. Don't worry, Mum, I'm not lost in New York, but I do want to talk about today's sponsor, which is Casekoo and the fantastic Cloud Cush case for the iPhone.
Cloud Cush isn't just a case for your iPhone, it's a case that cares. That's because it uses air cushion technology, which offers cloud-like, full edge protection for your iPhone. Despite this, it still offers a solid grip while effectively absorbing shocks thanks to its 3-meter military-grade drop resistance. And like all Casekoo stuff, Cloud Cush feels fantastic in the hand. It's definitely a case that I've been able to use for extended periods of time without any fatigue, which sometimes happens with iPhone cases. So if you use your phone a lot for gaming, texting, or anything else, the Cloud Cush is for you. To find out more, click that link in the description.
So if you buy the base spec M2 15-inch MacBook Air, you end up with the M2 chip with an 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 8GB of unified memory, and a 256GB SSD. It's basically the 13-inch version, but bigger. Apple does also throw in the 35-watt dual USB-C charger with all 15-inch MacBook Airs, which is a really nice touch and has proved very handy during this trip. And yes, as you can see, I've opted for the Starlight version this time rather than the smudge-infested Midnight edition. And this base spec 15-inch MacBook Air cost me £1,399, which is a £250 premium over the 13-inch version. And if you're wondering what the maximum you can spend on a fully spec'd up 15-inch MacBook Air is in the UK, it's a not inconsiderate £2,599. And that gets you the exact same chip, 24GB of unified memory, 2 terabytes of SSD storage, and yes, a 70-watt power adapter. So true to Apple form, this is not a cheap laptop. It was never going to be, but it's fairly well priced in the range of MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros. The big question is, what do you get for that money? So, as mentioned earlier, the 15-inch MacBook Air is basically the same computer as the 13-inch version. They've both got the same chip, the same storage options, the same unified memory options. The only difference is the size of the thing itself, the size of the chassis, and obviously the size of the display. So when it comes to performance, they're pretty much identical, and that does mean I can't avoid it, I'm afraid. The 15-inch MacBook Air also suffers from the storage chip issue. Basically, in the M2 chip, we get one NAND chip for storage for the 256GB and 512GB versions. That means it's slower in certain scenarios than the M1 version of the same spec. To get rid of that problem completely, you have to go right up to the 1 terabyte of storage. That adds another £400 or $400 to the asking price. So the big question is, would you notice it? Now, I've been using the 256GB 13-inch version of the M2 MacBook Air for over a year now, and it's been absolutely fantastic. The only time it let me down was on a trip to London where I had to do some last-minute 4K video editing, and basically, in Final Cut Pro, the thing slowed to a stop. I gave up and I never trusted it again for that task. So the choice is really simple. If you're going to use this 15-inch MacBook Air for mainly admin duties, web surfing, writing, email, normal office type stuff, don't worry about this chip issue. If you've got ambitions to do any kind of 4K video editing, intensive music production, development, that sort of stuff where you need some serious, power and grunt, then go for the 1TB version with 16GB of unified memory. A quick note on the battery life as well. If you haven't used an M series MacBook Air, then you're in for a real treat. Interestingly, the 15-inch MacBook Air has the exact same battery as the 13-inch version, but tests that other people have done, not me, kind of suggest that they perform the same when it comes to stamina. That's not a bad thing. The 13-inch MacBook Air is incredible when it comes to battery life. And I do need to do more testing, but this 15-inch version is just as good, if not possibly a little bit better. So let's talk about size and ergonomics, because regular viewers will know that I've been gradually getting fed up with my 16-inch MacBook Pro. I'm doing more traveling at the minute and it's just way too big. Therefore, I was wondering if the 15-inch MacBook Air would have the same sort of unwieldy problems in coffee shops and on the small trays that you get in normal class seating on aeroplanes. As it turns out, I needn't have worried, because the MacBook Air has got such a different design to the MacBook Pro, which is very chunky, very retro really for Apple. The MacBook Air, on the other hand, is incredibly, as they say, impossibly thin. Honestly, in this backpack, it has been, I don't know it's there. I genuinely have no idea I've got a laptop and a big laptop in there as it goes. Normally, if I have the 16-inch MacBook Pro in there, it's a real pain in the backside. This does present one ownership challenge though, which is the worry about bending it. And I had this with the 13-inch MacBook Air, and I think because the 15-inch is obviously bigger, that worry kind of increases. The only thing I'd say to give you some reassurance if you go with this big 15-inch MacBook Air is that I've had no problems with the 13-inch. It spends most of its time in a case, yes, but it's been in the backpack uncased before and I haven't bent it. What has surprised me though is how quickly I've got used to this supersized MacBook Air. Traveling here to New York on trains and planes was no problem at all. It never felt unwieldy, unlike the 16-inch MacBook Pro. And that additional screen estate that you get over the 13-inch version is just perfect. It really is something I didn't know I needed until I found out I needed it. So, who is the 15-inch MacBook Air for? Well, we know that pretty much any research you do about the most popular laptop size takes you to the 15-inch. So already there's a big demand there. But this laptop got me thinking about a guy that I travelled to Berlin with last week on a press trip. Now this guy was a traditional journalist, so writing for a big tech publication, and his laptop of choice was a 14-inch MacBook Pro. And he didn't do much more than write for that magazine on that laptop. So that really powerful MacBook Pro was being tasked with word processing. Now, in fairness to this guy, the 15-inch MacBook Air wasn't available when he bought that one, but he's a great example of just one category of user for whom this laptop is perfect. But that's just one example. I think when you think about the thirst for 15-inch laptops and the fact that most of those people, well, all of them, want great battery life, really good screen estate, and amazing portability, this thing is perfect for them, and that is a huge market. The fact it's made by Apple means you'll also get incredible design, amazing build quality, and a laptop that will last you years and years. Unfortunately, that brings with it the Apple tax or the Apple premium. So the big question is this 15-inch MacBook Air worth it over similar laptops? Before WWDC, the biggest Apple laptop you could buy was the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which started at £2,699. And this is why the 15-inch MacBook Air makes so much sense, but it's only come around now because everything else has fallen into place. For Apple to redefine this massively popular laptop category, they needed something that could power a laptop that was thin, light, fast and really durable, and that is where the M chip comes in, and I think they've done it. I'm going to say it, I think they've built the best 15-inch laptop at that price point. This is definitely my new daily, and I will return with the usual 1 month, 2 month, 3-month update. So if you don't want to miss those, if you're going to take a little while to make a decision about this laptop, which I completely understand, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. And if you've still got some time, hang around for a link to a video that I made recently where I talk about my favorite macOS Sonoma updates. And thank you, New York. I absolutely love you.